Welcome back to another episode of Searching for MacGuffin with your hosts,
George.
Gabe.
And Link.
That's not true.
What do you mean, guys?
You look
I'm back from Colombia.
You look so
hey,
different.
How's it
Me
going?
and my wife had a great time.
Oh, whoa, well, this is a family show, so we can't go into too much detail. But, oh, wow, we're glad you've made it through all your personal hardships.
I'm back.
You look more
Okay.
Cuban. There's something about it.
The Colombia sun? I don't know.
The Colombian sun made you more Cuban.
That makes sense. Wow. Not only is LinkedIn back, but we're back.
Woo!
Yeah, it's been a bit. Don't call it a comeback.
It has been a while. Been a long
Yeah.
time.
And not only has it been a while in real time, but the pace of the world, I think, has made it feel like it's been an exceptionally longer time than it actually even has. What do you guys think?
It's been like even I think just not getting together and recording, I think has just been. It's felt like forever.
Yeah.
Like maybe like half a year or something like that for some reason. I don't know why it feels that long. But like you were saying, like I think the state of the world also impacts that, but also the state of our own like mental. I don't know. It's been
Yeah, so
eh.
we've been in the trenches, huh? Huh, guys?
Oh, yeah, trench warfare.
Yep, and that's the topic for today. So we're back from our extended hiatus, and a lot has changed. As you can see, Link grew a thicker beard, and we've all been through some personal, professional, political changes, both in our lives and throughout the world. And that's what we're going to focus on the next 2 weeks. And I think it's going to be a topic that's kind of going to shift the direction of our show as a whole. You know, we put a lot of thought into this, and that's going to kind of unveil itself as we go on throughout the weeks and months. But 2025, when we're recording this, it's late March, about to be April, just a few hours, but it feels like a year and a half so far.
Yeah.
What about you guys?
It's felt like
Definitely.
so much has gone on, dude. I think, I mean, with each of us personally speaking, for me, there's been a lot going on. I know for each and every, like you guys, there's been a lot too. And I think that's kind of like the catalyst of the conversation when we got together and we're meeting about that stuff, where it was just like, there's so much going on, like internally as well as externally, or like our surroundings, the world around us. But I think in our personal lives, family, friends, and things like that, situations. Um, but yeah, go ahead,
Yeah,
Dan.
the planning for this episode was basically a therapy session. We came back and we are like, this show's back. Here's everything
Yeah.
that's happened. We all trauma dumped. So
Yeah,
it's
It,
yeah,
been long.
Go ahead.
No,
Yeah,
it's been long. It's been a long start of the year.
I think
Yeah,
too that Go ahead.
no, well, I think trauma dump was an accurate term,
Yeah.
and also we're now in 3 separate locations, and it's
Mhm.
kind of like we're stars across the galaxy waiting for like our orbits to come back in, and we knew that going into this season. We addressed that at the beginning. We said there'd be a couple of changes with the rotation that you did in Orlando, Gabe, and then being
Mhm.
shipped off somewhere, which I'm sure you'll unpack in a bit.
Yeah.
But it's just been a lot of change really fast, and I think what you said, like trauma dump, was that catalyst to get us motivated to continue to move
In the
forward and
healthiest
come
way,
back.
though, because it wasn't like,
Yeah.
but
Yeah,
just like
it
being able to
was.
talk about it with friends. We hadn't really caught up, so it was nice to just kind of get aligned again and then back
Yeah.
focused on the show after like a 3-month break.
Mhm.
Yeah. I think we were very caught up with the things that were happening, around us. And it was funny, like, when we talk about like in the chat, planning for the show, planning the next episode, there's a good line of communication, but I think um, with things going on, it's kind of like we were all not, in that open line of communication. We weren't all texting in the chat, or like we were talking to each other about other things, but as far as like where the show was concerned, I think that was kind of like put on hold just because of everything that was going on. And I think when we got back together and we started talking again about the show, um, we were all kind of in a similar place, emotionally, mentally, physically. Um, and that's how the episode title came about. I think we were on the trenches. We were going through it, and just through so many different ways. And I guess I'll get into it, with my stuff. So I had a 3-month rotation, um, for my last rotation for physical therapy school, and I'm graduating in a couple weeks. So
And
I'm
like very
excited.
brief, yeah, congratulations.
Yeah.
Very briefly, like what is a rotation? What does that entail?
Yeah, so it's basically I'm just working. I'm working for free. I have a CI, which is a clinical instructor, who oversees me, helps me, mentors me. Any questions that I have, but basically I'm just working as a physical therapist. I'm working in different settings. So Orlando was an outpatient clinic, and then this one was my first time in an inpatient. Well, it's not technically inpatient; it's long-term acute care facility. So let's say someone goes to the hospital, in an emergency, ambulance and everything. They're acute, then they become more stable. Their lives are saved. They're not in like in immediate danger.
They're
Um,
acute what?
acute,
Like a
like
cute
they
person?
require they require acute care. So when they're more stable, but they need like longer attention, like antibiotics or different treatments, that's going to take longer than, let's say, a couple weeks, more than 20 days around there. They get transferred up the floors to a different facility, to a long-term acute care facility.
I'm sorry, it
Um,
may sound like a stupid question, but so what exactly is then acute care?
Acute care is like I'm having a heart attack, emergency room, I'm in the hospital, ICU, like the lower floors, like where your life is in immediate danger. The so acute, just like something's happened rapidly and there needs to be, quick action to take care of. Um, so with where I'm at, there could be someone, a lot of like respiratory failure, people like their lungs aren't working, they need treatment for their lungs. And so like I would come in and do a physical therapy with them, eval them, see if they require it or if they don't, because there's a lot of different cases. But this is my first time in a hospital setting. And there was a lot to,
As opposed to,
like, as opposed to like an outpatient clinic. So let's say like you hurt your shoulder, you tear your ACL. Um, you go to an outpatient clinic, you get a prescription from the doctor and a referral to the physical therapist, and you go there and work on them. That's the traditional sense where, like, if you're not dying, that's where you would go. Um, so that's mainly my background, where I did my shadowing, where I worked, where I, practiced. And so going to a hospital was a very different experience. There's a lot of having to learn on the go, but you're dealing with real people and people that are, they're in the hospital for a reason, and it's challenging, I think, because you want to be safe above all. Um, I think getting into that mentality was a bit challenging, I think, in the mental, because I was so used to one thing and now I had to, be able to adapt to another. And a lot of times when, you graduate and become a physical therapist, it's either or. You're either in an inpatient setting or you're in an outpatient setting. And because the more time you spend in one, you kind of lose your skills in the other. So it's not very, and it's just the way that they do things, as well as like documenting and evaling, can be different. So it was just very different. And I
how does
think
that
that,
feel? How does that feel being on the 10-yard line? Like you're almost done and almost having to learn new skills and chat like
yeah,
you
yeah, it's I I chose this. I chose to put myself in this situation. I had an original placement that was going to be taking me to Tennessee. And I used to live in Tennessee, so I was like, yeah, sure. But then I looked at where it was, absolutely middle of nowhere, and then I heard other people's experiences about that specific place, and I was like, maybe not. It was doing more of the same of what I was doing. So it was outpatient. Um, but like they'd have one day where like Fridays, sometimes it would be that you'd have to go to someone's home and treat them there. And like I heard afterwards that it was like they don't pay you for gas, they don't they really reimburse you, they kind of just make you drive your own car. I gave the excuse, I was just like, I don't my car, and it's true. Like my car is not my car. It's I'm using this one until I can get my own. But and it's had issues in the past. And then I was able to get transferred to a different one because I was like, I've done 2 rotations already. This is gonna be my third one. This is my last chance to really learn, to really be put in a situation where it's like, once I start working, I'm gonna do what I'm comfortable with. I'm not really gonna throw myself because that's the real world now. In a learning environment, I have a little bit more leeway. So I chose to work in the hospital to see if I liked it because I was always, no, no, no. But as time grows, you learn more. You change as a person, and I think your perspective grows. And I wanted to challenge myself and put myself in those shoes. And then, but like once you're in the situation, it's just like, why the hell would I do this? Like, why would I do this to myself? Um, it's definitely a challenge and definitely made me think, reevaluate a lot of things. Um, but it was humbling and definitely took a shot at my confidence, I think. Um, and just
How
having
so?
to, I think because like you get so used to working with like to working in a specific area and you have to learn all these things where it's like you should like to me it was like going to you're about to finish, like you said, 10-yard line, about to finish, about to get that doctorate degree. And it's just like I think around that first or second week I felt like I didn't know anything. And we have classes for
Mm.
these things that I took a year and a half ago, you know, and some things like some like policies and just rules in the hospital um, can be very specific. And there's just things that like they're automatic to people that work in them that are used to those things. But to someone that's not from that world, it was a bit overwhelming at first. And then it's just like I think with that and I don't know, I thought I was I don't know, constantly being judged. It was all in my head. It was just a lot of things where I was creating self-doubt. Um, and yeah, it was a new place. I drove to Texas, South Texas, like almost by like I'm like 20 minutes from Mexico. Um,
Be careful, don't drive too
yeah,
close.
no.
They
And it
might
was
push you out.
just it might come back. Um, it was a very eye-opening experience, but it helped me grow and learn a lot about myself. But getting into the trenches part, there was just a lot of that was going on. First weekend I come into town. I had a friend show me around that was here before, and I had some issues with my car. My car made a long journey, but I had some issues with my car where it wasn't locking. Long story short, went somewhere, came back, car had been robbed basically. No broken windows or anything, but the car was open, so the car was unlocked. So lost a couple of stuff there, and that was I think that was a hit, like more mentally, like the things can like stuff can be replaced, but
But just stuff piling on top
Right, and
of
that kind of set
yeah,
the
it was just one
tone
thing.
too.
Yeah, and like that was the first weekend that I was here, and that was just like mentally, it made me feel like I don't know. It was a part where it was just like I felt what's the word? I didn't feel necessarily safe, you know?
Mm.
Not that someone was gonna like attack me or anything, but it's like a new spot, a new place that I don't really know anybody.
it's like a lack of
Um,
security.
yeah, and
Yeah.
that first week that happened, and it's just like I was constantly looking over my shoulder because I had because there was some like items in there that they could possibly identify me, and I was just like, ugh,
Your social security card,
yeah,
your
everything, my passport, birth
yeah,
certificate,
your last will and
um,
testament,
yeah,
the deed to your home.
yeah. So that was going on, and And then we also had some family things going on. I had my grandfather on my dad's side passed away, and like at the beginning of the year, like right before I had made the drive. Um, and that took a toll, I think. Not one that look was immediate, but one that like I feel like I had so many things going on that I wasn't necessarily processing it. There was just so
Yeah,
much
yeah.
stuff to
Sometimes
do.
you don't even have time to process it because
Yeah,
you're so overwhelmed.
to get to drive, have to drive over here, plan all these things, get used to like, the setting, the area here, and then all that stuff was going on. And then it's just like you spend all your time, at work and like I don't feel great at work yet. Um, I kind of feel uncomfortable and not like I'm, making a difference or learning. But the other thing was that my CI, my mentor, wasn't here for the first week. So I was with somebody else, and they were great, but they also were just a different type of person. Where like they're working, and they're expecting me to know a lot of these things, and I had to tell them, I'm like, I don't really know, how you guys do things or how it's usually done in this type of setting. And once I told them that, then they were more understanding. And but still, all of that going in together, coming with the loss of my grandpa, and then a couple more weeks later, and then we had another loss in the family. Um, and all of that was just it was overwhelming. It was extremely overwhelming, and it got to and like not knowing anybody here. My family and my friends are back home, and I'm really like pretty much alone out here. Um, just a lot of new experiences going on, a lot of change, and it was a lot. Mentally, I was drained, I was fatigued, I just wasn't great, and that kind of set the tone for the first couple of months where it was just um wasn't really exercising or going to the gym. I didn't find a place to play soccer, something that I love to do. Um,
They have soccer in Texas, or
yeah,
If
and
you go 20 minutes south.
well, I haven't seen actually,
oh, you
I
have to
haven't
drive
seen a
into
lot, so
Mexico. You have to drive into
yeah,
Mexico.
and it was a lot. It was a lot, and my mental state was really affected, and I was a pit of like despair and doubt, and just my friends would try and call me or contact me, and I wouldn't answer, and I was, becoming a recluse. Like all I would do on the like weekends would stay home and just either play video games, or I threw myself into Marvel Rivals. Um, once it came out, and that became like my escape. Like it was all that I was thinking about while at work and all that and all these things,
Our
and the game
escape,
is
brother.
fun.
Our
Yeah,
escape.
and I was
Yeah.
running
That's
with
not
Danny. I feel like
slander.
I've gotten so much closer with Danny and some of the other friends that play it. Um, but I mean, like we'll talk about, I think there was no balance. There was no balance at all. I was neglecting responsibilities that I need to do around the house for myself, things that even I enjoyed to do, stopped doing. And it was just one thing after another. It was just like I said, I was just a pit of despair, and it was like I couldn't get out. Like there was times where I would be, in my bed, and I had things to do. I had errands I need to run, things I need to get done, and I couldn't get up. Like I physically could not just, get up from that. And like the times that like I got the strength to get up to do something, I would just immediately go like I don't know, something would go back down in my head, and I would just go back to bed or the couch, or just eat crap for for lack
Yeah.
of a better term. Um,
Like in
and-
the sense of like wasting time, or like literally
yeah,
eating.
yeah, no, not
Oh
feces, no, wasting
no,
time.
I meant like like just like
Binge eating.
munching, sacking. Yeah,
Yeah,
binge
and
eating.
like not even eating like crazy. Like I'm used to, meal prepping and cooking, and I just, stopped doing that. And it's like I had no structure, and my structure was
Mhm.
gone. I was aimless. I just didn't have um I didn't have a plan. I didn't have a route. I didn't have, any structure, really, consistency to build upon. I was just going through the motions. Um, but not in in any type of direction, you know?
Yeah.
And it was bad. It was bad, and yeah, I'll say like I was depressed. Like I was down. Um, and yeah, I think certain things happened um in a specific sequence that like changed the game for me, and I was able to work on those things, and I think everything happens for a reason. And I'm thankful and I'm grateful that it did. And one of those things was starting this up again, starting the show up again, and being able to talk to you guys. And once I was able to talk to you guys, I I realized like we talk about things, but I think in that conversation that we had, we like really understood where each other, where everyone was at. Because it's like you can talk every day, like me and George or me and Danny could talk every day about other things, you know, media, things that we like to talk about. But as far as like how we're doing, you know, I feel like that conversation in where we're planning this really opened that up for all of us. But I'll leave it open to one of you guys to talk. I've talked more than enough.
Well, you can feel free, Danny, if you want to jump in.
I mean, for me, it was, I mean, I kind of piggybacking off of the medical field, and I'm not quite in the medical field, but I take calls for a big hospital organization in the area. The jump in the new year
Wait,
for
does that not make you in the medical field? Like, I know you're not on the
I'm
floor,
like,
but
I
technically you're
consider it like a customer service in a sort of way.
But
I'm like
a
scheduled
customer
but
service in the medical
field.
field. Yeah, yeah.
So call volume jumped dramatically in the new year with a ton of insurance changes, and when you're taking that many calls, you kind of can't help but get like a little glimpse of what's going on in the area. People talk to you, you know who's like struggling financially, and it just felt like everything was kind of in a dark place. Everyone that would call having trouble with insurance, finances, and that kind of sticks with you, especially when you're taking 70 calls a day with 70 people. So yeah, it was hard. It was a hard start to the year. And then I got back into school, plus the 70 calls a day, plus some financial trouble. And that really set the tone for the year. And like Gabe said, I just drowned my sorrows in Marvel Rivals. I would get up and be like, I need to get to Grandmaster. That was the only thing on my mind. I had put all my value, self-worth into Grandmaster because it almost felt like it was the only thing I had control of. Like, oh, if I can get to this, maybe I'll take some power back for myself. That obviously didn't happen. I did get to Grandmaster, but
oh, okay.
After that,
you didn't even have.
But at what cost?
Yeah, at what cost for real? But yeah, it was just kind of a dark start to the year, and then we had to take a break. Even I felt for you guys for your losses, and that in itself is tough. And it just felt necessary to step away from the show, but coming back, it's been nice bringing it back in with all my routines. It was really hard to get going, but now that we're into late March, finally, I can say kind of breaking out of that depressive episode. Call volumes have decreased. Taking care of my mental health. Boy, oh boy, 70 calls a day was tough. And then we're finally getting into a routine with school, but it was just a lot at once. Start of the year was a lot at once, especially like you mentioned briefly, George, politically, you know, that's also reflected in the calls I'm taking. And it was just a big smack in the face starting January. So happy we've all kind of broken out of it, kind of happy to just get back on track. So
yeah, broken out of it may be a bit much for me. I like to think
out of it.
Yeah, working towards exactly. Yeah. Well, so it's like Gabe said, you know, he was depressed. Sometimes I feel like I am depressed, and that doesn't mean that I'm sad all the time, but it's always like on the precipice, in the sense that you mentioned routine, you mentioned structure, and like I need these things to not fall into bouts. So it's almost like a specter hanging in the wake. So at least for me, I tend to use it in present tense because I know it's like an imminent threat.
It could
And
come back. And
Yeah.
no, yeah, you're completely right because
yeah,
that's the same.
yeah. So it's like I try to keep my eyes on the prize and remember that if I'm not moving forward, then I'm just gonna automatically step back, you know. And that the thing about, you both mentioned structure and routine, when those bad things happen, when we're overwhelmed or when we're just like overworked, it's really easy to give in to letting go of those structures, you know, like social media, for example. And I think we're going to talk about that a lot more next week. But it's a thing that I try to avoid and structure. Like I have time limits on it. And I don't really have social media, especially again, going back to this division, I'm stepping further and further away from engagement with online communities. But one thing that I'm big on is Reddit. Like I basically get a lot of my information from Reddit, and to the point where I'm like dependent on it. And now I'm like trying to seek new avenues of where to, get my information without having to be sourced by this one platform.
Yeah.
But when I'm down and when I'm sad, I literally tell myself, I don't care. I'm gonna be on this for like 3 hours. I don't care. I'm gonna turn off my limits. I
There's
know
no
that it's
self
bad for me.
control. Yeah.
Yeah.
Same happens to
I
me.
know, yeah. And I'm like, I don't even care. I know I should go to the gym. I don't even care. I'm just gonna eat this. Like, I'm gonna self-destruct. And it's not in like, your traditional like, I'm gonna go get high and like jump off a roof or something like that.
Yeah.
We all have those like self-destructive. I'm gonna down 3 bottles of whiskey, or I'm gonna get into a fight on the street. But definitely things that like erode your psyche, you know? And I think that in many ways we look at those behaviors and we think like those are radical, crazy, extreme behaviors. But in the world where we live in, like you're working from home and and we're constantly online, even when we're present in places. More and more, I think those habits shape us because we live our lives digitally, and it's affecting us pretty much in the same way. And I think that's going to be like um a big topic that's going to inform a lot of our conversations heading into the back half of this season and throughout this year. Gabe alluded to another loss in the family, and I think he was alluding to my own father who passed away, right? His uh another one of his grandpas. So it's like, and that
Yeah,
was
it was two. It was both of my grandpas passed away like in the span of like 2 to 3 weeks, back to back, and yeah, that was tough. But no, continue.
Yeah, and I think that my father's older, right? He was in his 80s and he had been, ill for a while. So it's something that you're kind of preparing yourself for,
Mhm.
and you're expecting it. And I always had this idea, and it's something that I am going to revisit at some point, like where I was like, I already know the episode I'm gonna do, you know, like sort of in memoriam to him, but in like a lot of this passion, this show exists partially because of him, because a lot of the passion that I have for film and media, it came from him. He was a film director growing up, and he was always passionate. I was born in New York. I lived there for a few years before we migrated here to South Florida. And like Broadway and film was and music was always passion, things for him. He was a hard worker. He was a workaholic, like for all intents and purposes. Spent large swaths of my life like not seeing him. Sometimes he would, work somewhere outside of where we lived. Sometimes it would just be like crack of dawn, he's out the door, like sunset has already passed, and we'll have a dinner. Sometimes we won't, but it was just like he was always on. But he always had this part of his personality that was the arts, and that stuck with me. And for me growing up, that was a big outlet because I lived, and I've touched upon this in the past, in a like very restrictive environment, but there was always a space for that through my dad. So in many ways, a lot of things that I talk about and my ability to like interpret, analyze, and really like take in media, it comes from him. So I was like, I know the theme of the topic of the episode that we're gonna do, but when he passed, even though it's something that you expect and you wait for,
Nothing
there was no
compares.
way. Yeah, there was no way to be emotionally ready for that. And it's like we're coming back, and this is kind of the first step in moving towards that, because that thing I thought I was ready for, I was like, I'm not ready to talk about that. Like,
Yeah.
I can't go that deep into it. So we'll like dip our toes, as we go on, and I definitely think that that's something that's coming along the pike, something I want to do, but I was not prepared. Plus, you got a lot of stuff going on. You guys mentioned professionally, I last year I talked about this big play that I did at school, and it was a great success. It was a real big bucket list moment for me. This year I decided, well, I'm going to scale it down, but I'm going to do 3 plays. So I'm going to give them a full season, for the actors in my, in my high school theater program, to be able to experience different things instead of working on one large project. Uh, we did like small 15-minute self-written productions. Like my whole team was divided in like different rooms, and they did different presentations. Then we did like a Shakespeare, which was a bucket list for me, bringing Shakespeare to my school, where you have like high school students who have difficulty reading and writing, studying Shakespeare to the level that they are performing this from memory. And
Yeah.
it was amazing for me. But my dad died the day before the production's like performance date. So I had to postpone that. And then that would postpone what what our home show, which is the big end of the year show, the big drama where you spend most of your budget, right? Performing it, how much time I would have for that. And it just made work exceptionally difficult, you know? Because now I'm 2 weeks behind on everything. And in a school setting, 2 weeks is everything. You only got like 180 days, and each quarter's 9 weeks. So 2 weeks, you're like, because I'm planning to be done by this date. Where do you get
Yeah.
that time back? So it was just a real, like, I felt overwhelmed at work, and I didn't care. Like, I'm very passionate about especially this aspect of my job, and like I just didn't care. And I like was going through the motions, and the other part of it is I felt like you mentioned a little bit, Gabe, about kind of like an imposter syndrome. Sounds like, do I even know what I'm doing? Like, am I even good at this? Like, and that creeps in. That thought creeps in. Like, you know what? Am I really even accomplishing anything here? Is it even
What's
worth
the
it?
point?
Like, yeah, what's the point? And then the other part is that I used to pride myself on being like Mr. No Days Off. Like I barely ever even take sick days. Not that I go to work sick, but like I make sure I don't get sick. I
Mhm.
take care of myself. So if I'm sick, I'm gonna get sick on a weekend. Like I'm
On
a
a weekend.
crash. Yeah. So being having to take like a week off for for grieving, that was very difficult for me, because now I'm just sitting at home. And listen, I don't want to besmirch the good name of Marvel Rivals, right? Okay, but let's be honest. Yeah, I was grinding the Battle Pass too. Between that and Fortnite, I was just like drowning my sorrows in like empty consumption. And even then, I wasn't enjoying it. Like, again, I'm a goal oriented person. So I'm like, yes, I'm unlocking this and I'm challenging this, and good. Now I won't have to do it. But like, how much was I really enjoying it? Not too much. I was just like, it would get to the point where I'm like, all right, what's next? Like, I'm gonna go to sleep. A lot of sleeping. Um, but then even that is not a solace. Like, I'm literally dreaming about all the stuff that's going on. Like,
Mhm.
anxiety creeps even into your subconscious. And like you said, a dark, a difficult place. And that's where it was. And I thought this show is a priority. It's not top priority in my life, but it's on the list
Hmm.
of things. And the weeks were going by, and I'm like, does anybody even care? Like,
Yeah, I
does
had the
Dan?
same thought too.
Yeah.
It was just radio silence for like a month, And we were sitting on 2 episodes. They didn't even know that we were sitting on 2 episodes.
I didn't know.
Because like
I
No,
thought
I
they were out. I thought they were out. I knew we recorded them,
yeah, me
and
too.
I never
Yeah.
even bothered checking. You know?
yeah,
Yeah.
things started rolling. I was like, let me hold on to these, put them in my back pocket. We'll see what happens. 2 months
Because when
went
they
by, and we were like,
Because
ooh.
when it happened, because when all that stuff happened, I think that was around the time that we had those episodes. So I just thought, oh, we have enough time. Like we've bought ourselves a couple of weeks, and then those weeks went by, and I was just like, you're not thinking about any of that stuff anymore.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
you're thinking about, what's going on immediately with you, what's affecting you,
Yeah.
and
And yeah, go ahead.
just with everything going on, I think it was just like with the losses that we suffered, like because I have the chat pinned, so it was just like so I would look at it sometimes. I'm just
It
like.
was always there. Yep.
Yeah,
I just
same.
thought like, I think we were going through things and
Yeah.
I think
We're going
like,
through it, as the kids say.
yeah, you like there's obviously times where it's like you think about the show because it's like it's a part of us now. But I was
And
just
like
thinking, yeah,
I'm seeing you, Gabe. Like we're talking in the chat with Dan. I'm going out to a movie with producer Nick, you know.
yeah. But we weren't I just don't think that's where we were at mentally
I don't think
um
I could have sat down to edit. I don't think it was
prepared.
happening at all. Like even if we had recorded, it was tough.
Yeah, and it was just one of those things where it was just like you were saying, George, I think it was just like you get to the point where like what's the point? I think you get, and that starts to bleed into a lot of different aspects of life. For me personally, at least, it was just like, if I don't feel like I'm good enough at my job or what I'm going to be doing for like, for a time in my life, and I feel like, oh, I don't have control over myself where I'm so lazy that I can't even get out of bed and go work out, go to the gym, train for a half marathon that I have, that's creeping up. And just doing the things that make me me and like the things that bring me enjoyment or things that like my structure, my routines, my habits that I can't even bring myself to do that. Like I just felt like I was like, dude, I don't have power to do that. I don't have control to do that, and it made me feel worse about myself. Where it was just like,
Mm-hmm.
I'm a
You spiral.
loser.
Yeah.
I'm a loser. Like,
Mm.
you know, it's a hard thing. Yeah, they're hard things, but you got to get those done. And like I've, read so many books and listened to have so many conversations and thought about these things where it's just like you think when like when it comes to like the do or die situation or like the fight or flight or the burning building, like are you gonna run away or run into it to help people? And it's just like you'd like to think of yourself as the hero, as the person that's like, yes, I'm gonna do the hard thing when it comes. Like when push comes to shove, I'm gonna be there. I'm gonna be that guy. And then, but you have the little things that creep up on you that are in front of your face that aren't necessarily so difficult, but then when you can't achieve those, when you can't even do those, and it's like I was getting in my head where I was like, I can't even do some simple tasks like this. I can't even like do these things, and I'm like, who am I? Who do I like? What am I basing my identity on? What am I basing a lot of the things that I think about myself? And it was a lot of like introspection. I think for the most part, it was a lot of negative self-talk. It was a lot of
Absolutely.
doubt, insecurity, things that like, you work on, as you grow up in life, if you're able to, and these are things that you work on, but some like things just happen in life where like a lot of those things, it just makes your walls crumble. And a lot of like things around you shatter and you go back to bare bones. But then you also have this little thing on your shoulders telling you you're not worth anything, you suck, and you can't even do this right. And it's just telling you like you're not that person. And I think that's what I was struggling with. Is just like, they say like your greatest enemy is yourself, and like that can be true at times where it's like you're just putting yourself down. The mind has a way of just like trying to seek comfort, trying to seek ease, and that's why you don't do the hard things. That's why you don't do your chores, your errands, your commitments. Um, but then it's a double whammy with the other side is like when you don't do them, um, you're kind of just like you suck. You don't even have the strength to do this. You don't even have the ability or the will or the self-control to, do the things that you say you want to do, the things that you like to do. And like you were saying, George, I can't even imagine for someone that's, because I think, like you said, you're goal oriented, um, and that can be very frustrating when
Yeah.
you're not meeting or achieving a lot of those goals,
Yeah.
and it's just like you said, it's a spiral.
Yeah,
Um,
especially because you depend on self-assessment and you are not a reliable narrator
reliable, yeah.
in regards to your achievement. And that's why I think community is so important. I have my wife, she's with me, you know, every step of the way so she can hold me accountable. No, man, you're screwing up here. And no, you're actually doing really good here. And at work, it's like I engage with people, and I have the students and seeing them excel and perform, like they picked up the slack when I started dropping the ball. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
Obviously, we were going to perform fairly soon, but when I came back, I was kind of zombie walking through the 2 weeks, that we had after, and they picked up the ball and they did amazing. And the work that we had put in before that, you know, meant that they were ready for it. And you can see that achievement. You can see the product of that. And then when it came to this show, it was like we had the come to Jesus meeting. I don't know who it was that reached out. I saw you, Gabe, at a family wedding that I went out of my way to make sure that I went to, because losing my father, being in that process even before it actually happened, because it was very close after, and I had already made plans to go.
Yeah.
But like just that, losing that connection to that part of my family, and understanding that work isn't everything, and that sometimes you have to take time. Even having taken that week off, I could have made the excuse, and I don't mean like that it's bad or lame or that I didn't, but like, work's important, and if I can't take off work, then I can. But I was like, I'm gonna dedicate this time to family, to connect with family, and I'm gonna go even in the wake of having taken all this time off, because
Yeah.
of, also again, because of family. And I think it was great. And I remember at that time, I think it was me that told you, like, hey man,
Yeah,
we got to talk about
we were out
getting
in the
back on the
city.
air.
Yeah, we're
Yeah.
eating. I think we were eating Korean barbecue out in the city,
Yeah.
or at a play or something, like, or Drunk Shakespeare or whatever. Um, and you mentioned, like, we gotta, and the thought already had been in my mind. I
Yeah, but
think.
I just threw it out there
Yeah,
too,
you
because
spoke
like,
it into existence, where it was just like you
but
were
like
just like,
against my will, because I'm like, I'm gonna throw it out there. I don't know if this is something he wants. I don't know if it's something I want, but I'm gonna throw it out there, because
yeah,
not saying it like is not the play,
yeah. I think we had because it had been weeks since everything was happening, and you brought up. I was basically the same point you were. Like, I thought about it and things like that, and I assumed at some point I would hope to. But you mentioned it,
Yeah.
but it was just to me when I was there, and I just remember that in the wake of everything that was going on, um, really going through it mentally, the loss of your father, my grandfather's, and the things that we're all going through. That wedding, I think, was the beginning of a turning point, um, for me at least, where I was able to spend time with you guys in a place that I love. New York's my favorite city to be in.
It's the greatest city in the world.
Yeah, and just spending
It's
time
on the
with you guys.
t-shirts.
Yeah, spending time with you guys at a joyful event, because the last time we were all together, it was memoriam for my grandfather. And as great as it is to always see family, especially when they come into town, it was a very sad moment. And I think
Yeah.
there's different things where it's like, I don't know if, like, how long processing takes, but like, it's not even all done yet still.
Yeah.
That'll take a while, but I think going to that wedding, going for a happy moment, and just celebrating um with my family in ways that it's not like we do this all the time,
Yeah.
we
Yeah.
see that part of the family maybe once or twice a year,
Mm-hmm.
and it's really just in passing, the same place. It's just like we grab food, we hang out, and then that's it.
Yeah,
But
and
yeah,
just to interject, forcing myself to celebrate, because you're in the wake of mourning, and like you don't want to, like, and putting myself in uncomfortable situations. Like, I never go on the dance floor. I did, because I was like, I'm gonna do it just to experience it, because it, like you said, you were avoiding the hospital rotation and you're like, no, I'm gonna do it,
Yeah.
because you have to see whether it's going to be edifying for you or not. Like, stop being scared of experiencing life. Like, I could be in the pit, in the trenches, or I can be here with my family. And I think it was especially cathartic for me because it's my dad's side of the family. It's
Yeah.
New York, where he's from. Like, his identity, he's Colombian, but he's New Yorkan, and he's more New Yorkan, I think, than that. And like that's
Yeah.
what I inherited from him. And it was just a lot of emotions all like marred together.
Yeah, and that's the thing, man. When like, because it was basically the younger crowd of the family, like your siblings, the uncles, aunts, my uncles and aunts, which to me, you guys are like my siblings. Um, and when we got there, we got to the wedding, we're all suited up, and we get to the reception, and it's like I don't think we've been in a situation like because I think we grew up in a family that didn't really dance like that. Um, and so going to the reception and like being out on the dance floor with you guys, my family, a situation I don't think I've ever been in. Like I don't think I've ever seen you guys, in that way, behave like with my like the other part of the family and this side of the family, and just honestly, it's a memory that I think will always live. Like it's like a top memory I think for me. Um,
Yeah.
just being with all you guys dancing on the dance floor, and it was just like a way to like release a lot of the things that we were going through. It was to me like yeah, I'm playing it in my head. It was like just one of those scenes in a movie. Like it just felt like I mean the most recent one I
The
think
end
was
of a
probably like
chapter. Roll
yeah,
credits.
like
Fade to
Guardians.
black.
Like
Yeah.
the end of Guardians 3? I was
Yeah.
close. Like the end of Guardians 3 and like the music going on, the dancing and like this is the end of something, and but also just something so pure and something so beautiful and something that like I've known you guys my whole life, but yet I was able to see a different side to everyone. And that was just something that inspired me and motivated me to the point where it's like it gave me hope.
Yeah.
Like it reintroduced hope into my life, something that was like I was in desperate need of. Um, and then going back on my way back home, it took me hours, delays and such. But that's when I texted. I was like, we should meet.
Yeah.
We should meet. And I
And
didn't know where everyone was at necessarily, just because like
my assumption was like the come to Jesus meeting is like the show's over. I
yeah,
was
like
like,
that's
they're gonna tell me they don't want to do it anymore. Like,
I was a little no, I was a little afraid. You were gonna say something or like someone else gonna say it's too busy, like they were too busy or
it's too
like
much, which is
it's
rational. Like,
yeah.
there's too much
Like
going
it's
on.
sad because it's a part of us, but at the same time it's like I understand. But that's what I don't know if that's just the perception I was, projecting, but that's what I thought something was gonna change radically. But when we got to the conversation, I think it's just we had just been carrying so much weight.
Yeah.
Excuse me. Things had been so heavy um on all of our shoulders. And but I know what I've come to realize like when those times happen, that's when you really got to press forward and put yourself in situations like you said that you're not comfortable in
Right.
because like and I'll talk about this I think sometime else. It's a train of thought that I've been coming to spend a lot of time on, but just allowing yourself to relinquish, surrender the things that you cannot control, let them go, focus on what you can, and then do your best. And
Yeah.
I think setting a meeting was the starting point where it was just like, let's do this. And so that meeting in a list of different things that occurred in my life recently was just a way to get back on track. And I mean, I'll go more in depth on that at some other point, but it was just one thing after the other, like just like little things to big things to little things, small things, just little bits of encouragement, little pieces of hope. That was like a breadcrumb trail that led to that kind of catharsis with all of you guys and just that
Yeah.
therapy session to
You
leading
just
up
got to
to
keep,
this now. Yeah.
yeah, you just got to keep your eyes on the MacGuffin. That's what it is. Like you're saying, that hope, there's light at the end of the tunnel. When you've lost that hope, that's when you've lost.
Mhm.
So as long as you remember what it is that you're searching for, then you're still on the right track, even when there's setbacks. So that has to do a lot with the interpersonal between us, the micro of it. But what does this have to do with the world at large? And I think that's what we're going to talk about next week in our next episode. So if anyone has any final thoughts before we go off the air.
Have a great week.
Keep on searching.